Welcome back to Miles Reads. I'm Miles. Today, we're diving into asking the right questions, a guide to critical thinking. This book was co-authored by two American academics, Neil Brown and Stuart Keeley. Brown, an economics professor, has dedicated his career to the study and promotion of critical thinking, making him a keynote speaker at international conferences on the subject. He has trained and consulted for an impressive roster of clients, including the U.S. National Security Agency, IBM Asia Pacific, LEGO, and the U.S. Air Force Academy. His expertise is clearly sought after at the highest levels. Asking the right questions is a cornerstone text in the field of critical thinking. First published over 30 years ago and now in its 10th edition, its staying power is a testament to its value. However, it's not a light read. For one, like any advanced skill, diving into it without a foundational understanding can feel like a grade schooler trying to tackle a high school algebra textbook. Secondly, it was designed as a university textbook, making it far denser and more intellectually demanding than a typical bestseller. Without deliberate practice, getting through it is a real challenge, but the effort is well worth it. So today, we're going to unpack this essential skill, critical thinking. What is it? Imagine a common scenario. For any given issue, different experts often present conflicting, sometimes diametrically opposed, opinions. Most of the world's problems don't have a simple, universally accepted answer like 1 + 1 = 2. In a world of ambiguity, who should you believe? How do you make your own informed choices? That is what critical thinking empowers you to do. But mastering any new way of thinking is difficult. It requires breaking our ingrained mental habits, which is always a struggle. True mastery of critical thinking only comes through extensive training, constant practice, and self-reflection. You might be wondering, if it's this hard, is it really necessary for everyone? Are there key strategies to learn it? And what are the common pitfalls to avoid? That brings us to our 3 core topics for today. 1. Why everyone must learn critical thinking. 2. The most important method for learning it is to ask the right questions. 3. A critical mistake to avoid is believing that what you see is all there is. First, why is critical thinking non-negotiable for everyone? I've heard friends say it feels too academic, that life is easier without it, or that it's just a tool for rational types. Is that true? Is critical thinking just an optional add-on for a select few? Think back to how most of us were taught to learn. We opened a textbook, underlined key passages, and summarized the author's main points. The entire process was designed to find, remember, and understand what the author was telling us. This was the gold standard of being a good student. The long-term consequence of this approach can be crippling. We learn to absorb arguments, but we lose the ability to evaluate them. Imagine you were president, with a team of the world's leading experts at your disposal. You would have access to infinite knowledge without ever having to read a book. Would you still need critical thinking? Absolutely. Warren G. Harding, the 29th U.S. president, famously lamented this exact problem. One day, an expert tells me, "I have to do this," he said, and the next day, another expert tells me to do the exact opposite. What am I supposed to do? Even with the best advice in the world, you still face the fundamental challenge of choosing between conflicting options. Without the ability to independently analyze and critique the arguments presented to you, even a president cannot effectively lead. For the rest of us, who don't have teams of expert advisors, the challenge is even greater. The only way to navigate this reality is by mastering critical thinking. So, what is critical thinking at its core? One of the best definitions is this. Critical thinking is the process of thinking about your thinking. Why do we need to re-evaluate our own thought processes? Because human thinking is naturally flawed. The opinions we encounter are either from others or from ourselves. It's easy to understand why we should scrutinize others' opinions. Their advice is often shaped by their own interests and motivations. But what about our own thinking? Even without ulterior motives, our reasoning is full of bugs. We often assume our own well-considered decisions are sound, but they can be riddled with risks. As we've discussed in our episode on thinking, fast and slow, Our brains are wired to take cognitive shortcuts, relying on intuition that can lead to disastrous decisions. Consider this scenario. Two candidates are running for office. The first candidate says, "Our team has made tremendous strides in protecting women's rights. First, our leadership is deeply committed and has taken decisive action. Second, we have built and strengthened the institutional framework for these protections. Third, we have significantly increased funding and resources for related services." The second candidate takes the stage and says, "Our team has also achieved great success in protecting women's rights. In fact, one of the people we helped is right here in the audience. Her name is Alice. She's 70 years old from a small town. Thanks to our new job initiative for seniors, she now has a full-time job at a local hospital. Alice, would you please stand up and give everyone a wave?" Who would you be more inclined to vote for? Most people would choose the second candidate. The story is vivid, personal, and full of detail. It grabs our attention and creates an emotional connection. This is, after all, a classic public speaking technique. But here's the problem. This kind of argument is utterly unhelpful for making a sound decision. A compelling anecdote is not valid evidence. When stories are used as proof, our alarm bells should go off. Why? Because an individual case only proves that something is possible, not that it's typical or effective on a larger scale. How many people like Alice are there? Is her story an outlier or the norm? What was the cost of getting her this job? Did giving a job to a 70-year-old take an opportunity away from someone younger who needed it more? Without this information, we have no way of judging whether the candidate's policy is good or bad. From an information standpoint, the second candidate actually provided less value than the first. But without critical thinking, we would never stop to ask these questions. We'd walk away feeling like we made a rational choice, which is a truly dangerous illusion. This same mental trap appears when we choose a house, a job, a business partner, or sign a contract. These decisions shape our lives. Can you still say critical thinking is something only other people need? No. It is directly tied to our own well-being. This brings us to our second point. How do we learn and master this skill? The answer is right in the book's title, by learning to ask questions. What kind of questions? When we accept a viewpoint, we are accepting the argument behind it. A standard argument has two parts: the conclusion, what they want you to believe, and the reasons, the evidence supporting it. So, argument equals conclusion plus reasons. For example, the government should ban smoking because it's harmful to your health. Here, banning smoking is the conclusion, and it's harmful to your health is the reason. Now, let's apply critical thinking by asking questions about both parts. First, question the conclusion. Is it universally reasonable? Does ban smoking apply to everyone? What about a terminally ill person who finds comfort in smoking when health is no longer the primary concern? What about a deeply impoverished town whose only industry is tobacco, and a ban would lead to starvation and displacement? We must first question the universal applicability of any conclusion. Second, question the reason. Is the evidence solid? The reason given is harmful to health. What is the proof? How severe is the harm? Is a cough considered harm? Or what does it have to shorten one's lifespan? In a strong argument, reasons must be supported by clear definitions and sufficient evidence. As this simple example shows, critical thinking is the process of relentlessly questioning the conclusion and reasons of an argument to determine its validity. To be thorough, we need a whole battery of questions. What exactly is the conclusion? What is the core issue? What reasons are provided? Are there any ambiguous terms? Are there logical fallacies in the reasoning? How credible is the evidence? Are the statistics misleading? You might think, how can I possibly remember all these questions? Don't worry, the solution is simple. If you recall our episode on the checklist manifesto, you know that when a task is complex and prone to error, the best tool is a checklist. Asking the right questions offers the same solution, a detailed list of questions. Whenever you evaluate an argument, just go through the checklist. It ensures you won't miss anything critical. At this point, you might be thinking critical thinking sounds fairly straightforward, but this can lead to a major pitfall. This is our third topic, A common mistake to avoid is believing that what you see is all there is. We often forget that what is left unsaid is often more important than what is said. In any argument, there are things the author explicitly states and things they leave out. The unseen parts are often what truly determine whether a judgment is sound. It's like a senior official visiting a factory. If they only see the perfectly polished, pre-arranged tour, any decision they make based on that visit will be incredibly risky. Likewise, if we base our decisions solely on the evidence someone chooses to present, we expose ourselves to the same risk. So, what are these unseen elements? There are three types of critical information that often get ignored. 1. Overlooked alternative causes. 2. Unstated value assumptions. 3. Unstated descriptive assumptions. First, alternative causes. An author will present a reason for a conclusion, but it may not be the only reason or even the right one. For example, a doctor tells a patient with depression, "We have a new treatment called sunlight therapy. Research shows that reduced sun exposure in winter can cause winter depression, and this therapy is highly effective." In our study, we took 9 patients with winter depression and gave them 3 hours of extra light therapy after sunset. Within a week, 7 were fully recovered, and the other 2 reported significant improvement. The therapy works by tricking the body's biological rhythms into thinking it's summer. We recommend you try it. As a family member, wouldn't you be eager to try this scientific, evidence-based treatment? But if you're thinking critically, you'd ask, is the light therapy the only possible reason for their recovery? Could there be other explanations? For instance, the placebo effect, patients expected to get better, so they felt better. Or perhaps they knew the goal of the study and wanted to please the researchers. Or maybe the weather was unusually sunny that week, and they spent more time outdoors. With a sample size of only 9 people and a study duration of just 1 week, the conclusion is incredibly weak. There are too many other possibilities. The first step in critical thinking is to actively look for alternative causes that the author didn't mention. The second overlooked element is value assumptions. A complete argument isn't just conclusion plus reasons. It's conclusion plus reasons plus value assumptions. A value assumption is an unstated belief about what is right or how the world should be. Let's return to the smoking example. The government should ban the production and sale of cigarettes because growing evidence shows it harms both the smoker and those around them. The argument sounds solid, but it rests on a huge hidden assumption. The author believes that when an individual's choice harms the collective good, the government has a responsibility to intervene. This is a value. You might hold a different value that protecting oneself is a personal choice and individuals have the right to decide for themselves, a more libertarian view. If so, even if you fully agree that smoking is harmful, you would reject the conclusion. You might support stricter warnings or designated smoking areas, but not an outright ban. The difference in our underlying values leads to completely different conclusions. These value clashes are everywhere. Consider the argument. For most people, college is a waste of time and money. The reasons given might be, when you can make good money without a degree, more than half of people earning over $35,000 a year don't have one. 2. The knowledge you learn in college is rarely applicable to a job. By embracing this argument, you're embracing its hidden value assumption that financial and material success is more important than knowledge and wisdom. If you believe wisdom is more important than money, you'd never accept the argument's logic. Once you learn to question not just the argument, but the values behind it, you begin to think critically. Finally, there are descriptive assumptions, unstated beliefs about how the world is. These are taken for granted facts that an author assumes are true without feeling the need to prove them. This level of scrutiny might seem like nitpicking, but it's the heart of rigorous thinking. It's how we focus our discussions on what truly matters. Ultimately, critical thinking isn't about being negative or argumentative. In fact, a better translation might be discerning thinking. The goal is to find a more complete and reasonable explanation. It's a tool for self-evaluation, for refining our own beliefs, and making our thinking more mature. Applying this today, you shouldn't just be taking notes on my points. You should be questioning my arguments. Every presentation has limitations, and every person, myself included, is prone to flawed reasoning. The most important thing is not who said something, but whether the argument itself stands up to scrutiny. The true value of critical thinking is that it gives you the power to challenge any idea. I love a quote from Charlie Munger that captures this perfectly. "I'm not entitled to have an opinion on a subject unless I can state the arguments against my position better than the people who are in opposition." In other words, you only truly understand an idea when you know its boundaries, where it works and where it fails. That is true wisdom. Let us summarize. From asking the right questions, we've learned 3 key things. 1. Everyone needs critical thinking. In an age of information overload, where we're constantly told to do A or B, this skill is our only defense for making independent, sound decisions. 2. Learning critical thinking is a process of asking questions. We can use a checklist to systematically question an argument's conclusions and reasons, training our minds to think more rigorously. 3. We must look beyond the visible argument. The most critical parts of an argument are often the unstated ones: alternative causes, value assumptions, and descriptive assumptions. A complete evaluation must bring these hidden elements to light. Mastering this process of questioning and analysis will bring clarity to your understanding of the world, empower you to make truly independent judgments, and prevent you from being easily swayed by others.